So for my birthday, Louise got me this hanging air plant. It's called Tillandsia Ionantha, and that's absolutely the correct botanical pronunciation. It doesn't have any roots, it absorbs all it needs through its leaves, so I need something to attach it to. A few days later, I suddenly had this vision in my head of creating these wooden rings to nest it in, so that's what I'm going to do. I've got some red gum pieces left over from making the fence on my router table, and it's riddled with holes and splits, but there's 3 pieces that are just the right size for the hole saw, and this is how wide the wood rings will be. These pieces are too thick, so I'm going to split them in half with my table saw. This way I'll be able to make 6 rings in total. Making the wood thinner reveals which pieces are weak and lets me select the strongest sections. These I'll mark out using the hole saw as a guide. With that done, I head over to the table saw miter sled and chop these pieces to size. I sandwich each piece together using double-sided tape to create a nice stack of them, as I'm going to hole saw them all in one go. I use the hole saw bit itself to mark out where the centre of the stack is, so I know where to place this on the drill press. I'm going to stick the stack down on the drill press table with double-sided tape, and this should keep it in place for the first stage. So it's all systems go. Even though these are small pieces of wood, I'm confident that if I take it slow, it should all go as planned. It all seems to be going well. It doesn't matter where I point the vacuum though, the sawdust is going everywhere. Right here I apply too much pressure and the hole saw grips, and then when I release the whole piece comes with it. So that's my signal that it's time to turn it over. With it removed from the drill press, the outside pieces come off relatively easily, and it's a simple matter of unscrewing the hole saw bit to remove it. It just takes a lot of unscrewing. After that, I need to drill all the way through so my pilot hole is there for the hole saw. Time for some more double-sided tape before turning it over on the drill press and setting it in place. Now, this didn't work as well as last time, so I ended up holding a block of scrap to the side, and this worked quite well. It wasn't long before I had a nice round stack of wood. So how exactly am I going to turn this into some rings, I hear you asking? Well, I'm going to use a smaller hole saw bit and see if I can bore it out. To keep it fixed down, I'm going to double-sided tape it to a piece of plywood and then double-sided tape that plywood to the drill press table, and it should be fine. That all seems to fit nicely, so it's time to bite the bullet and see if this works. I honestly wasn't sure if this was going to be successful or not. I had visions of the pieces breaking apart and all being a big failure. However, the gods are on my side and this worked very well. Once I'd cut through 2 slices of wood, I could see the rings moving about, so I decided to stop here and remove them at this point to prevent them from breaking. They lifted off easily and I'm pretty impressed at how they worked out. I applied gentle pressure to pull the 2 rings apart and then went back to hole sawing the remaining pieces. At this point, I could see the plywood was starting to move, so I decided to clamp it down to prevent any serious injury. It didn't take too long before I cut the remaining rings, and I was somewhat shocked that the process worked and none of them shattered. I then spent some time sanding them back, first the flat sides and then working on the outer edges. Some rings had an uneven surface on the outside from when I turned the stack over for the hole saw. When I was sanding the inside of the rings, one of them completely fell apart. Now, I thought I was being gentle, but clearly not enough. Well, it looks like then I'm down to 5 rings now. Luckily, none of the remaining rings broke, but I was a bit more careful at this point onwards. So I gave them a vacuuming and then wiped them with a cloth to remove any remaining dust. Now, I plan to join the rings together with some thin strips of red gum. I have some left over, but when sizing them up it felt like they were a bit too thin and flexible. I had another piece and I liked its width, so all I needed to do was cut some strips from it. So over to the table saw to do just that. I wanted to line these rings up about yay far apart and glue the strips to the inside. So I'm marking on this scrap piece the spacings I want them to be. Now that I know how long the strips need to be, I can cut them down to size. I'll be needing 3. One last thing is to give the ends a quick sanding before proceeding to gluing them. To do the gluing, I'm going to use double-sided tape to hold the rings in position. This should make it much easier to stop them from moving about, especially as the glue dries. I'm also going to use these strips as a guide to make sure the rings don't move back and forth. So with all of that done, I get the ring stuck down, and then on the end ring I use a strip to align its final position. I put a dab of glue on the inside of each ring, and then place the strip on top and apply some pressure before applying dabs of glue on either side of the strip. Once I've done this, I leave it to dry for a few hours, and when I come back I gently pry it off the tape using my knife, and I'm very happy with how it's turned out so far. The next two strips need to be spaced 120 degrees, so I use my protractor to mark out these locations and then repeat the same process to glue the next strip down. This strip didn't stay down on all the rings, so I needed to place another strip, ruler and knife on top to add some weight to hold it down while it dried. Once more, I needed to repeat this step to glue the final strip down, and I left it overnight to dry. The next day I was very happy with how it turned out. I just needed to clean up a few bits of dried glue and some double-sided tape. I've decided to finish it in wax, and due to how fragile this creation is, I'm going to approach this differently. I poured some boiling water into this bowl, and after putting some of the wax into this small paper cup, I'm going to float it in the water to melt the wax and then apply it using a paintbrush. This was pretty effective, however the wax didn't stay liquid for long, but remained in a soft state long enough to allow me to get a consistent application. I'm very happy with how it worked. It took a while as there was lots of sides that needed wax and I needed to be gentle too. After I left it for an hour, I came back and dusted any excess wax with the clean brush and then went over it with the cloth to bring a shine to the wax. Which took a while to be honest, however I'm very happy with how it all turned out. It's way better than I expected. To hang the rings, I'm going to use these garden pot chains. They have 3 chains per hook, but I'm going to remove 2 chains from each hook so I can hang it from a chain at each end. I've removed a link from the end of the chain and open it up so it can slide over the strip on each end. I then reattach the chain to the link and close it. Once I've done this to both sides, I now have a hanging frame for my air plant. I'll be honest, it's exactly how it appeared in my vision when I first had the idea. It's strange how the mind works sometimes. To get the plant inside the rings, I'm going to roll it up in this piece of paper and then slide the paper into the rings and gently push the plant out while removing the paper. This worked as I expected, and after rotating it around to the correct position, it looks pretty cool. Here's what it looks like hanging up. Sometimes though it's hard to capture how something looks in person. I chose to put it inside, hanging in the middle of these lamps in our lounge room. It seems to work nicely there and it looks like it's at home. Let me tell you, the look on Louise's face when I showed it to her was priceless. She had no idea I was making this to hang the plant in. And that's all there is to it, folks. I hope you enjoyed seeing this vision I had come to life. I'm curious to hear what you think. Until next time, bye.